Hi, my name's Lauren Epstein, and welcome to another episode of You're Hired, here on WERA 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. Today we're going to be talking about how to work with a recruiter. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Having been in the talent acquisition business for 20 years and being a recruiter, I love recruiters, and I love good recruiters, and I've got some awesome recruiters with me today. We'll introduce our guests in a minute, but first I want to just let everyone know that we do a lot of work on this show, and some of the big supporters who have their hands fully engaged in the product that you're listening to are my production engineer, Afote Odai. Afote has been with the show since the beginning, and he spends a lot of time cleaning this up so that you can hear it. You may not know, but the show that you're listening to was recorded and broadcast at 10 a.m. on Mondays. At 11 a.m. on Mondays, you can hear the show on our website, which is Mixcloud. Mixcloud.com is a YouTube for audio shows, and our show is called You're Hired. So if you go to Mixcloud.com, you'll hear our show by searching for You're Hired or Lauren Epstein, me, your host. And another way you can reach us is by email. So my email address is Lauren, L-O-R-N-E, at electriccow.com. And because I love my fans so much, I'm going to give you my phone number, which is 240-876-0276. If you have a show idea, let me know. If you have comments, if you think something's great, call me. If you think we did a really bad job, don't call me. And I want to thank also our production assistant, Alex Pascasello. Alex is 16, and he makes sure that all of our guests are appropriately prepared, scheduled. He writes some of our news and actually reports on some of the news that we do here on the show. So today we are going to talk about how to work with a recruiter. And with me I have three guests. First is Derek Zeller. Derek draws from over 18 years in the recruiting industry. For the last 13, he's been involved with federal government recruiting, specializing in hiring in the cleared intelligence space. And what that means is people who work for the FBI, the CIA, NSA as contractors and need special clearances. He currently serves as He currently serves as technical recruiting lead at ComScore. He has experience with using out-of-the-box tactics and strategies to identify and engage talent. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And also on the phone from New York City, we have Steve Levy. Steve is an engineer who crossed over to the dark side of HR and recruiting. During his 28 years of matching people, companies, and opportunities, he's built and managed talent communities, introduced innovative ways to engage and recruit, and help countless people with their careers. Steve's been recognized time and again as one of the most influential people in recruiting and careers. And I can attest to that. Steve is definitely someone who knows a lot about this field and is on the bleeding edge of what's next.
Great guy.
And with us today also we have a job seeker.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yep, and we'll introduce our job seeker a little bit later in the show. But first I want to talk about how folks, because a lot of people have different ideas of what a recruiter is. And I think if you Google a recruiter is, a lot of things come up that are kind of nasty, right?
Not good. Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. But there's different kinds of recruiters, just like there's different kinds of folks in any field.
Sure.
So first, Steve, tell us, what you've been doing in the recruiting field and what you think a recruiter should be, and as far as the perspective of the job seeker.
Well, Lauren, as I like to tell people again, I was an engineer for many years till I crossed over to the dark side and had a really, wide awakening. I was one of the folks who, coming out of college, had very good, very bad, and exceptionally ugly relationships with recruiters. Now, I'm sure, I know Derek and I will cover it, but I think the problem is that the entire industry has done an absolutely horrible job at public relations. 10 different people will give you 10 different opinions on what recruiters are, what they should be doing, and 10 different recruiters will tell you 10 different things as well. And I think this confusion has, hurt job seekers in sometimes often, the worst ways. And, one of the things that Derek and I do as an industry is we're trying to put in place structure that clarifies all this stuff and quite frankly allows, people who are customers of ours to actually be better consumers. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about that a little later down the line. But let me pass it off to Derek here right now as to the types of recruiters that people tend to come up against in the industry.
Yeah, what are some of the problems, and what do the problem people look like?
Well, I think the problem really is training. You have people like Steve and I have been in the industry for a long time, and it's pretty rare. There's not a lot of us. I think a lot of recruiters burn out after a year, 2 years, 3 years, especially in third-party recruiting.
What's third-party recruiting?
Third-party recruiting is like your Adecco's or your Hudson Manns. They're RPOs.
So let's talk about let's talk about the kinds of recruiters there are. So there's recruiters that work for an agency, a company that is like a headhunter. They're getting a fee to place that person. So it's a percentage of their salary or percentage of their hourly wage.
Yep.
That's one kind of recruiter. Yep. Another recruiter is in-house.
Right.
Somebody who works for like yourself.
Yeah, corporate.
You actually work at ComScore.
Yep.
Which hires people.
Right.
And when you hire people, you're working for the company.
Right. They're my sole client.
Right. And you're an employee.
Right.
Yeah. And so what other kind of recruiters are there?
There's also a thing called a sourcer, and that's more what Steve would be more like. The sourcer is a person that goes out and finds people that are not necessarily looking, and then hands them to a recruiter, and the recruiter does their job to try to get them interested in their company.
And they're also an employee of the company.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're contractors that are hired to do just that, to facilitate resumes and find people that the recruiter is not being able to find themselves.
But they're not paid like a commission.
No.
So whether or not their work, I think that's really kind of one of the things.
I see what you're saying. I see where you're going. Yeah, they're not. Their payment is not necessarily bonded to the person getting hired. They're looked at
more. Or as we say, Derek, as we say, it's not contingent.
Right. It's not contingent upon
getting hired.
Right. Not for a sourcer. A recruiter on the other side, even, like I have numbers that I need to meet, but I'm not getting paid because Lauren took the job. My job is to get people to fill those jobs. And that's why that's why they hired me. Since I've been it was kind of fun when I was with ComScore. Right now, I think I'm averaging a hire a week. So my managers are extremely happy with me.
Right.
But, it's long days, and I do it because of the love of it, and I also do it because I want to help people. I've been in those shoes. I've been in that's the thing I've always talked about. Bad recruiters, they just look at, for me, this is my opinion, is they look at, if they're looking at dollar signs, then this isn't for them. It shouldn't be for them. For me, yeah, I make a very nice living, but I'm also helping people. And I have gone out of my way a number of times to say, you know what, you're not a fit for us, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to put you in a number of websites where hundreds of recruiters are looking for someone with your type of skill set. And
so if I'm a listener and I'm talking to a recruiter, or I've been talking to a recruiter, I want to get a sense, are they helpful? Are they going to be kind to me? Are they going to be a good person?
Right. There's a candidate experience that has been in question for a while, and there's a couple of companies, Career Crossroads, for example, Jerry Chrisman's company, monitors this. And it's interesting because we're always talking about employment branding and so on and so forth, but when it comes to the hiring process, it's a mixed bag of nuts. Some is good, some is bad, and some is just okay. But if a good recruiter is continuously talking to you throughout the process, not leaving you hanging. I have a process every Thursday at 3:00. I send out emails or make phone calls to people I'm working with. If they've come in and met with us and interviewed with us and we've decided to pass on them, I let them know right away. I just kind of say, it wasn't a fit for us. I don't think it was really a fit for you. But maybe down the line, we'll have something in another area, and I'll definitely keep in touch, and I will keep in touch.
So one of the things that folks might see with the bad work, and I've had this experience, is that you send your resume in and nothing happens.
Right, the black hole.
Right? So that's a big problem, right? But a good recruiting outfit, like what you're saying, is that within a week, I'm going to get back to you.
Oh yeah, at least.
And let you know something.
Yeah.
So that you're not left hanging.
Yep.
Right. So what, that's one thing that's bad, right? The black hole. I think a lot of other things that people who are looking for jobs don't feel good about is that they don't get the right information.
Right.
Right. Talk about that. Actually, Steve, tell us about that. Like, what happens for a candidate who's not getting the right information?
Well, let me briefly touch upon something that add to something, another layer to what Derek said. The third party, the agency recruiters, only get paid by the company when things take place. Under no circumstances, I can't think of any circumstances where a job seeker should pay to be placed.
Right, that's a good point.
Very good point.
That happens. There's not a single quality recruiter who will charge a person for their services. And to the audience, if somebody is trying to charge you, run away.
Right. So
which is true.
That's great advice.
Rena, you may be our special guest may be chuckling because she has experienced that. I hope not, but that is something that happens too frequently. Now, Lauren, the question again, because I talk too much. So the follow-up to Derek was what?
I don't remember. You mesmerized me with your answer. I was just completely wrapped, and my mind got completely blown. That's all right. We can keep going on.
Misinformation, poor information, bad information, or not relevant information towards the position.
Well, I think Let's before we move on. I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Steve. Before we move on, so
sure.
Today what we've got about it's an hour show. We're going to talk 52 minutes. We're going to talk about what doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. I've got these great recruiting minds here, and what doesn't work from the candidate's experience, and what should a candidate look for in a good recruiter. So I guess we could talk about some of the problems we've been talking about, like don't pay to be recruited.
Absolutely.
Right? A good recruiter is someone who's going to get back to you.
He's going to listen.
Who's going to listen.
It's going to listen. The thing is, a good recruiter is going to say, the first thing out of my mouth when I call somebody is, I'm like, how are you today? How's it going?
Right.
I want to know what mood they're in.
Right. And I've heard you say this a lot, both you and Steve, is that the most important thing about being a recruiter is basically being a person.
Yeah. Listening. Being a human being. That's what we are.
And we don't call candidates. What do we call them, Steve?
We call them people. We don't call them passive candidates. We don't call them talent. No parent ever referred to their child as, hello, this is my son, human capital. Right. These are people.
This is my daughter, applicant.
My daughter, applicant. She's really cute. You can see the color of her resume. It doesn't work like that. Anyone who does that is just as disingenuous as they come. Derek and I have actually collaboratively written about this. We are helping people to make some of the most important decisions of their lives.
Yep.
If as a recruiter you don't take that seriously, go become a politician and run for president.
Yeah, the three most stressful things you can do in life is basically buy a house, get married, and find a new job. Literally, those are the three of the most stressful things that a human being does. So for me and Steve and Lauren and anybody else who's really into recruiting people, we want to make that as easy and less stressful as possible. Being an internal recruiter, I tell people, I'm like, this is what we're looking for. I coach them because I want them to get the job. That's my whole job, is to get them a job. So I want them to come work for us if we really like them. If they have great paper, if they have great skill sets, it's like, okay, so you need to be a good problem solver. That's our biggest thing. I can teach you SQL. I can teach you R. I can teach you Tableau. I can't teach you.
And those are programming languages.
Yeah, they're all programming languages for data analysts. I can teach you that, but I can't teach you how to think outside the box. If you're an order taker, then that's not somebody that we really are interested in. And, I flush that out when I'm talking to people. I let some people know. I'm like, that's okay. It's all right. Go get some paprika, some pepper, some salt on your skin, and we'll talk again in a year or two. Get some seasoning.
Yeah, Lauren, one of the question you asked is, how do you know what the real job is? And this is, again, another issue within our industry. Yeah. Is that thing called the job description and how people respond to it and what they do with it. The job description is inherently, we internally we say it's not a recruiting document. if you see how it's read, it's very task based. Almost everyone is task based, and the reason that's so is because something on the compensation side of human resources, that's how jobs are given a salary. It's called job grading. And so anytime you read a job description that talks about tasks, responsibilities, things like 5 to 7 years, BS or equivalent, that's not what you'll be doing on the job. That information is used to give the job a salary range. And the problem with that is people will look at those things. They'll look at these tasks and they'll say, I'm qualified. Look, I have great communication skills. Look, I have a degree. Look, I have 3 to 5 years. To me, that's like getting a C on a test. An A, if you're an A, you can solve the problems that are behind the job being open in the first place, which lends itself towards the most important thing a job seeker can do is try to find out why the job is open. What problems will the job be tasked with solving? Frame out the parameters of it. Why? You can't find that from nearly every job description you read on the planet.
So you're saying that's something that a candidate should ask, a person that's interested in the job.
Yeah.
We won't say candidate anymore.
Yes, I can.
We're going to talk people. So the person who's applying for the job should be asking these questions. What other questions should they be asking? What questions do you like it when they ask? So those are two things. What should they be asking? Let's talk about that.
I should be asking exactly what Steve said. Why is the job available?
What else?
It's like, am I replacing somebody? On the government side, on the contract side, it's all government contracts, and they're set up on a yearly basis. So somebody might leave with 6 months left on the contract, and you're coming in thinking, hey, cool, I'm getting a full-time job, but only for 6 months. And then they don't win the contract.
So what are the good questions that you like it when candidates ask?
I like candidates to ask about my actual company. Like, what can you tell me about, what do you do, or what am I going to be my daily job? I see what it's on the job description, but it doesn't say what the environment is like. Am I going to be in a queue, or am I going to be in an office? Do I'm going to work with individuals, or am I going to be a team member? Will I be a lead? Will I just be some part of the group? I want to see that you're really interested in my company, which is ComScore. That's important to me, because it means that you're not just sending out resumes hoping to get a job somewhere, that you're really fascinated by what we do and you want to do what we do. I've been that way my entire career. Even when I was a third-party person, I would tell them about the company. I would tell them about the atmosphere, the things that were going on, and get them excited about it, because I want them to really want this job.
Cool. Steve, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I asked some specific things that people could do. As much as many in the recruiting profession have, I guess I could say, fun talking about LinkedIn in a not so positive way. One benefit of LinkedIn is that, based upon a job title, for example, let's take Derek Company's ComScore. You could, with just a little bit of effort, identify who the likely hiring managers are. And then you could look at their profiles.
So how would I do that?
They describe the work that they do.
How would I do that?
Pardon me?
How would I do that using LinkedIn?
Well, let's say, for example, Derek is looking for another data scientist. And it's going to be somewhere, where was that, Derek? In California, I think it was?
No, it was, but most of the stuff we do is in Reston right now. Some in New York.
Okay, so what you can do is you can go to LinkedIn, and to the right of that little search bar at the top is the word advanced. If you click on the word advanced, a search box comes up, which allows you to put in the job title. So in this case, I would put in data scientist. Select it, doesn't matter whether it's current or past, and then go down to the company, type in ComScore, type current, and then a little later down below under location, put in the zip code for Reston, Virginia, and that means click search.
Current is in someone who's currently working for ComScore.
Yeah, their job title would be
correct
at ComScore, as opposed to being at ComScore.
And then what happens?
So what is, you're going to list of people who are both data scientists and very likely somebody who manages data scientists at ComScore. And then you would look at the profile, specifically the managers or the directors, the VPs. And you can see how they describe the work that they do. And I'll bet you $1, Derek, that when you look at the thing, how they describe it, it's going to be different than what's in the job description. So there you're starting to get some insight into what the real job is like, what the real problems are like, what the flavors and scents of these problems are. And then, for example, when you reach out or apply to a job, you can look at the things that you've done and map them to the things that the managers are describing.
Would I want to call these managers? Would that be something I would do?
Well, if you actually don't have a problem picking up the phone and dialing, you could conceivably call managers and say, "Hey, this is Derek Zeller. I'm currently a data scientist over at Nielsen. I'd like to work for ComScore." And I think many a manager, I don't know, I only know one specific manager at ComScore, but I think as a hiring manager, people have called me up with that same approach, and I'm just tickled pink that they called, and I'll interview them right over the phone.
It's
something that actually happens.
It can be a double-edged sword, though, because there are some managers that are going to be really turned off by that. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, mine doesn't read like a resume from ComScore. Mine reads, "This is what I'm looking for ComScore." And I probably get 3 or 4 in-mails a day from candidates looking, and I do respond to them. I say, at the moment, I don't have anything at your skill set or your skill level, or I saw that you were looking for a QA job. I'm not the QA recruiter. I'm the quality assurance guy, but, Pete Radloff is. He sits right next to me. I'll get you the resume. Send me a resume. I'll send it over to him. And we've hired people that way as well. So my response really is to do what Steve said and look for the recruiter in the company on LinkedIn, and then link in with the recruiter. Good recruiters will link in with you. If they don't link in with you, especially because they're looking for what your skill set is, then they're probably not somebody you want to work with.
Yeah, I've had that experience of personally of applying for jobs, finding the recruiter, connecting with them on LinkedIn, and only having them tell me to go to our website.
Right. I hate that. Oh, God, I hate that.
No, I hate that too.
That's lazy. That's as lazy.
It's just lazy.
In our profession.
Yeah, it's just ridiculously stupid. I have uploaded more resumes in my career than I could possibly imagine. That's why when somebody reaches out to me, if they've taken the time to find me and reach me, that means I'm like, this person is seriously wants a job. They want a job with my company. So I'm going to say, okay, cool. I'm going to upload your resume. I'm going to attach you to the job. I'm going to let you know what job it was. You've already obviously seen some kind of job description, and then we're going to talk a little bit. And if
is it safe to say that it's a good idea for a person to call or email or somehow reach out to someone at a company that is in their potentially future department to say, "Hey, I'm interested"?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually tell recruiters. This is what we're actually, Craig Fisher and I, he's a good friend of mine, we're actually working on a white paper on discussing on how recruiters should set themselves up being their own fishing hole instead of having to go source and do Boolean and all this other, stuff that sources and recruiters are doing. Make it easy on yourself, man. I mean, seriously, I got 4 or 5 hits right away. I did nothing other than just put up a really cool LinkedIn profile, an About Me page, a Facebook page. I mean, I'm out there. As recruiters, we should be open to conversations with other human beings because that's what we do.
And so what are some of the other secrets? Sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, sure, and it should come no surprise. It's not just Derek and me who do this. We have a growing circle of people in the industry who are, in fact, very open about who they are. They're easily accessible. We don't hide our emails. We don't hide our phone numbers. We don't hide the ways to contact us. Because, frankly, that is our job, to speak with people. And, we're always looking for ways to improve the way we do that. And for lack of a better word, to improve our brand. So people know that, if they reach out to these types of recruiters, we're going to get an honest answer. How novel is that, right, Derek?
Yeah, I totally agree.
So that's, I think, a big secret, that if I'm a job seeker and the company I'm looking to apply for, their recruiter doesn't get back to me if I directly reach out to them, that's probably an indicator that it may not be the kind of place I want to work at.
Absolutely. I mean, recruiters
It
are.
also may be the case that the company doesn't get recruiting terribly well. So it may not necessarily be that the whole. I don't want to impugn the entire company. I will, knowing nothing else, I will impugn the abilities of that recruiter until further notice, until they receive a special call from one of us.
Yeah, the other thing is
which,
too.
By the way, Derek and I do. Yeah, we do call bad recruiters.
The other thing
we do
too,
try to
yeah,
rehabilitate
recruiters. Rehabilitate. I like that word. Well, the other thing for the listeners who are actually looking, give us 24 to 48 hours to get back to you. You know, because we're human beings too, and we also have lives. Very little lives, but we do have lives. And sometimes we're working with multiple people on multiple jobs, and it just takes us some time to get back to you. I try to get back to everybody within a 48-hour period. I actually say that most of the time. Even when I leave a voicemail, I'm like, if I'm on the line, just leave me a voicemail. I'll call you right back, or I'll call you within a 24-hour period if we're already having a conversation.
So what does your day look like, so people understand, what's a recruiter's day look like? You come into the office at what time? 6, 7, 8 in the morning?
Whoa. The day, Lauren, the day does not start when you come in the office.
Right? Ah, okay. Tell us about that.
I am up roughly 5 a.m. every morning, reading industry news, responding to some emails, looking at social feeds where I put stuff out, looking to see how all the recurring work that I've created, what kind of fruits do those trees bear? So that's a two cup of coffee slot from roughly 5 to 7 every morning. And after that, then it becomes the standard day getting to the office. I mean, I work remotely, so my day is slightly different. But it's still filled with, no kidding, from guessing 8:30 to 6:30, sometimes 7. It's meetings, calls, research, rinse, lather, repeat. And then after that, there are some days a month where I'm going to industry meetings after work till 8, 9 o'clock. And then we get home, and quite frankly, as soon as I get home after 9 o'clock, with the exception of probably Derek calling me.
All right, we're not going to go there.
We're not going to go there. My day starts between 9 and 10. Depends on how well. I mean, I live a half an hour from the office, and DC traffic. You never know how you're going to get in. But most of the time, I live in Outlook calendar, so everything's on my calendar.
But you're making phone calls. You're getting phone calls. Mm-hmm. You're talking to managers. You're setting up interviews.
Yep. Well, I have somebody that sets up my interviews for me, but yeah.
Right. Posting jobs.
Posting jobs 5 minutes.
Right, but constantly, this is like a nonstop thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just part of the daily grind. Mm-hmm. My favorite part is I don't think recruiters, at least, and for me, once again, it's how I live my life. I know some people have families and things like that. I don't have any of that. So there have been many times when I'm making phone calls at 10 o'clock at night because I'm recruiting somebody on the West Coast, so it's 7 o'clock their time.
Sure.
So I don't mind doing that.
And we make calls on the weekends.
We make calls on the weekends.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that recruiters are trying to find people, and usually those people are busy during the workday, so we'll call you at night or in the weekend. Oh,
yeah. In the cleared space, when I was in the cleared space, people don't realize that the high people that are in the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, so on and so, you can't just bring your cell phone in to the building. And if you go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you sit in your car and you're talking on the phone, the CIA isn't wondering if you're looking for a new job. They're wondering if you're talking to China. Okay, so you have to make yourself available for the hours when that person is available. Sometimes it's 5 o'clock in the morning, like Steve said. Sometimes it's 7 o'clock at night when they're on the train heading home. So you have to set your times up that way. And
so what other secrets? I mean, what are things that you would like people to know about you guys and applying for jobs?
Derek, I have one that I think actually helps job seekers tremendously. It's something that I've practiced telling people for years. As a job seeker, as a person looking for a job, when you are on the phone with a recruiter and you've had your say, whether it's good, bad, or whether the outcome is good, bad, or ugly. If you ask me, Steve, what are some of the other tough positions you're recruiting for? If I could, send some people who do those things in your direction, would that be helpful? I am going to hug you and kiss you and never forget you. If you, it's sort of like the show. It's let me help you, or help me to help you. Whatever the line was, the Tom Cruise line was. But that's it. There are, I as a recruiter, I can go around to all the different, talent communities, platforms, sites, whatnot. But I don't know who you know. And all it takes, in my mind, is for one person who I'm interviewing to give me the name of one or two people who get hired. I will then go out of my way, even more so, to help the person who gave me that name. It's always paying it forward. The good ones, we always pay it forward. And the people who are looking for jobs always pay it forward too. There's always someone who could benefit from your assistance.
Yeah, paying it forward is big. But my thing is, one thing I think recruiters get a bad rap for is that I'm not hiring you. It's not my decision. I'm the intermediary. I'm the Jerry Maguire. I'm kind of like the agent between the individual who's applied for this position and the manager who's hiring for it. I don't have a say if you get hired, but I'm the bad guy that has to tell you didn't get the job. The manager doesn't get to do that. I have to do that. And that's hard for me, because there's some times where I'm like a cheerleader for certain people. I'm like, what do you mean she wasn't right for the role? It's just, come on. Her resume's fantastic. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And sometimes we have to figure that out. And all of a sudden the manager realizes that, oh, well, actually what I really need is this. I'm like, so you've wasted my time, you've wasted her time, all because you didn't know what you wanted. So that's also a little bit onus on me that I didn't do a good intake meeting with you, but it's frustrating at times. So understand that we get frustrated too. I don't want to say no to somebody. I really don't. I go in every conversation I have with every individual I'm looking at. I go in with a positive attitude of, this is a person I want to move forward with.
I think that's the biggest secret that people don't know when they're applying for a job, is that the person that's interviewing you wants to hire you.
Yeah.
They absolutely want to hire you because they don't want to keep interviewing people. They want you to be the one.
Yeah.
What do you think about telling people regarding them asking about salaries?
As in asking
you. A person calls up and says, hey, how much does this job pay? And having that conversation. How do you guys feel about that?
I'll take this one real quick
I
first.
have no...
Steve.
Okay, take it.
So the way I continuously had salary negotiations is I do it up front. And I tell them, I'm like, okay, so you're going to, very rarely does somebody ask me how much is it paying. I very rarely have had that. And I usually have that conversation at the very end, because I don't want it to be about money. I want it to be about a really good fit and a thriving role for you, so that you come here and you grow within the company, and 10 years from now, I'm at your 10-year anniversary and we're having cake. That's what I want to see, So I ask them, what do you need? Where are you at and what do you need? I don't want to make you less money. That's not my goal. But if you're making $150,000 a year and I know I can only pay $85,000, it's been a great conversation, but let's not waste each other's time.
So you'll ask people what they're earning.
So yeah.
And you want them to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't even ask them what they need. I said, so where are you at financially and where do you need to be? And most people will just tell me, well, currently I'm making, and I'm just like, okay, well, you want to tell me that? That's fine. How
do you feel about people who tell you, I'm not going to tell you what I'm earning?
It kind of puts a damper on our conversation, because I'm going to say, listen, if that's if that's where you're at, I'm going to tell you the range. I can pay up to $90K. I'm not saying I'm going to pay you $90K.
Right.
But I can pay up to $90K.
But don't you find a lot of people here, like the range is 80 to 90, and in their mind, oh, I just got an offer for $90,000.
Oh, sure. That's why I say I'm not going to pay you 90. I might.
So people should be listening that it's not, this is what they're going to get paid.
Right.
But that's the range, and what's the range based on?
Right. And is it a range that you're comfortable in?
But it's based on their skills and how they fit in.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you come in, there's been times, not necessarily normal, where I'll get like a database administrator, for example, like a really solid one that's got Hadoop and their SQL skills are out of this world. And I find out, oh, well, I'm making 95. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we can pay 110. I'm going to go to the manager and say, we need to at least up this guy by 10 grand. We need to give him a salary of at least 105. And I even think we should give him 110 because that's what he's worth, or that's what she's worth. A lot of people don't even know what they're worth. They're just so desperate to get a job. So I kind of coordinate that. But there's other people that are kind of overvalued. They got on a contract specifically in DC where they were overpaid so they would stay. But
Steve, how do you feel about the salary question?
I'm the same way. I tend to, I have no problem telling folks, this is the salary range. This is the 25th percentile. This is the 75th percentile.
What do those percentiles mean? What do those percentiles mean to a person?
That's a good question. Some companies, I certainly don't want to say most companies, but most large companies will do market surveys to identify what the salaries are for specific job titles. They'll also call them job grades. So, the median of the market is the 50th percentile. That's the median, again, is where 50% of the salaries are higher, 50% are lower. Then there's also the 25 and the 75. Now, people who are looking for work don't need to know this, but there's a compensation construct called comp ratio, which more recruiters should know. That's essentially, what is the ratio of a person's salary to the median. The bottom line is, as Derek said, there's always flexibility. I too will pay for the person's skills, not what they're making. It is more often the case when someone has been in a company for a very long time, say, I think probably 7+ years, 7 to 10 years, they're likely going to be lagging 20% behind the market in salary. I'm aware of that, and I'm going to pay them what they're worth, not what they're making. I am straight up. If someone says salary, I also know that, having asked someone for, having bought a house, having asked someone to marry me, and having looked for a job, I know the stress there. So I have no problem showing my hand to people. But then if I show them my hand, then I want them to show them theirs. I have no problem with whatsoever.
Right. I want to change the subject a little bit. I want to talk about resume advice. You guys see a lot of resumes. What would you tell people about resumes?
Wow.
That's a whole nother hour, Lauren.
God, that really is like an hour.
We could
literally do an entire show on it. Let me just put it this way. If you're a brand new graduate, then have your, master's degree, college, whatever, have that on top. Because you really don't have a whole lot of experience yet. If you did internships, good for you. You have good parenting behind you because you did that. Show what your immediate skills are, especially if you're in technology, for example. If you're a STEM candidate, show that, I've programmed with C, C++, Python, R, whatever. If you're a seasoned candidate, then your degree should be on the bottom. It's going to be an afterthought. Right now, I'm going to look at what have you done for the last, X number of years. Also, don't put in your objective. I hate the objective. Your objective is to get another job, pure and simple. Don't say my objective is to do this or, and grow daisies, whatever. It's irrelevant. It's superfluous, and I've already looked past it.
What are the things you hate on a resume?
Pictures.
Pictures?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Pictures.
Yeah, well, if you look at outside...
Like people's photographs?
Yeah, people's photographs or people who...
It's a very European thing.
It's a CV, yeah. Curriculum vitae, actually required to have your photo for a lot of countries. We don't do that here. We have EEOC. That's kind of improper, and unfortunately, I have to actually turn the resume away and ask you to resend it without it.
So you don't like pictures. What else don't you like?
I also don't like flowery fonts or paragraphs.
Or weird paper, right? Just kind of like white paper.
Well, everything comes through email now. I don't know.
But sometimes people put those images.
But images. Don't make it so hard for me to read.
There you go.
I want to see bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
I did this, and this. This is why you want to hire me. This is why I'm applying for this job.
So the resume should be easily readable. Should be free of spelling errors.
Oh God, yeah.
And grammatically correct.
Free of spelling errors.
Proofread it.
Yeah, definitely proofread it. Absolutely. Steve,
you got any pet peeves on resumes?
Well, yeah. Let me add a few. like chronological resumes. I don't like resumes that are parsed into skill areas. Essentially, you're telling me, the recruiter, you're a moron and you can't glean that information on your own. The good recruiters are aware that life situations happen, and there's a reason why you're looking for work or coming back to the workforce. Anything that someone can do to obfuscate the career progression, it's not going to be a bad red flag. I'm just going to, when I read and again, it's Sunday, chronological, Derek, functional. When I look at a functional resume, I go, oh God, they might be trying to hide something. Now I got to go down to the bottom, look at the top, go to the bottom, look at the top. Give me a chronological resume. Think of it like a recipe. Don't show me the cheesecake. Show me the things that went into the cheesecake. Tell me the kind of oven you use. And maybe this may be a really bad metaphor, but I want to know the problems that you've solved. Frame for me what the environment was that you came into. As a startup, it was a growth, it was the turnaround, the market was collapsing, the market was expanding. We were going into a new area, had 17 new bosses over a 4-month period, and I was still able to do all this stuff.
For me, I'm going to interrupt you, Steve.
Make me go.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I think for me, and we're going to move on to another subject, but for me, I want to see a resume that gives me enough information that I'm going to call you. Right. Because I know that resumes are just a piece of paper, and you're a person, which is, we've established, is much more complex than a piece of paper.
Yeah, you want to make somebody to that point is I want to see a team that I know, but I still want to know the environment. I simply don't think most recruiters know enough to be able to. Well, let me take a step back. Most recruiters are just looking for buzzwords.
Right. Well, we're gonna move on. So I want to bring in our guest today, who's Rena Watts. Rena joins us from Chicago, and is a research and media professional with 10 years of project management experience. She received her start in the talk show arena in Chicago, where she worked her way up from intern to producer in just one season. Wow. She then moved to Los Angeles, where she had the privilege of working on many scripted and non-scripted reality shows in various capacities. Now she's back in Chicago, using her research and interviewing skills to rock the world of sales and lead generation. Rena, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Rena, you're currently looking for a job, is that right?
Yes, I am.
So I have with me these two amazing experts. What would you want to ask them? I mean, you're probably a classic job seeker. You've got a lot of experience. You've done a lot of different things, and now you're looking for the next thing.
Just in what I've been hearing you guys talk about, I wrote down a lot of things. Recently, I saw a posting on LinkedIn, and there was a girl in my area, a recruiter, and she was like looking to meet with IT professionals, and I knew somebody from my last company that also got laid off, and he has a business degree from a top business school, and he was a project manager for 10 years, and I knew that he was a father, and I really feel worse for him because my husband just landed a great job through a recruiter, and I have the luxury of waiting, and so I told her about him, and then I was like, I'm also looking. But she spoke with him, and then we had a phone screen, and then one of the companies that I mentioned to her that I was in communications with was actually a company that he had placed people at before, and I was like, oh great, well before I apply, if you know any of the managers there, or if you can tell me about some of the people that you've gotten hired there, that would be great, instead of just sending my resume into the black hole. Even though I already know somebody that works at that company, I met with them for coffee. I did the whole LinkedIn networking thing. I was like, great, you placed somebody there. I'd like to try that through you, and
So you already took some of Steve's advice, which was to help the recruiter that was talking to you by giving them a referral.
Exactly. So I've done that.
So what questions would you have, given you haven't gotten a job yet? What do you think is between where you're at and getting a job? What questions would you have for Steve or Derek that might help you get to the next level?
I guess some of the questions I have is, how do you beat the applicant tracking system? It's I'm open to different products. I'm open to different, industries, and the response that I get immediately, obviously, is I just recently got an interview at a radio station, a CBS station here. It's like whenever I send my resume to an entertainment job, since, I've worked in the talk show industry, I've worked at a radio station, I've worked in television, I get those immediately. But then if I apply to like a social media manager role, which is something I really have a passion for, I've got like 1,200 direct connects on LinkedIn. I've booked lunch and learns by reaching out to C-level executives on LinkedIn. I've created corporate, videos for the last company that I worked at. I get those type of responses easily. But then when I apply to something that I'm interested in and I feel that I'm qualified for, it's like if I don't use all those buzzwords and I don't directly regurgitate the job description in the cover letter, then I don't get any response.
Okay, so your question is, just to boil it down, is how can Rena get past this phase of getting rejected because her resume is not quite exactly what they want, saying the words?
Yes.
Derek, let me jump on this really quickly. The applicant tracking system is just a piece of software that does what it's programmed to do. So it's not like the Venus flytrap on Little Shop of Horrors, which says feed me and then just keeps growing and doesn't give anything back. There are still people at the company. Now, you mentioned social media. Let's take a platform like Twitter. One of the things that we do in recruiting is we will create. Let's say we're looking for a business analyst or a tax person or an accountant, whatever the case may be, in Oklahoma City, for example. There are tools that we can use to identify people who have accountant in their Twitter bio and live in Oklahoma City. And then what you'll do is we'll add them to a list, and we'll create a list that says accountants in OKC we love. And people will then get a notification that they've been added to a list, accountants in Oklahoma whom we love. And they'll go, who's adding me to the list, accountants in Oklahoma that we love? Similarly, in your field, if it's a certain radio station, then I suspect they have several employees who are using social platforms to talk about the company. You need to, and again, this is where job search isn't instantaneous. It's not a fast food meal. It's a 5-star restaurant that takes a while. You make a reservation. You dial it in, sit down. It takes a while until you can get to the meal. So you're going to follow these people on a Twitter or a Facebook or a LinkedIn, but on Twitter you're going to add them to a list that says something to the effect that WLOV, my future employer, something like that. And it's Sunday. I can't think of anything funnier. And folks are going to get the notification, and then they're going to start following you back. And perhaps over a course of a 2-week period, you're engaging with them on that one platform. And then you'll ping one of those folks with a private message, because they're going to follow you back. That's when you start your, hey, I noticed you have an opening here. Can we talk about it? It's a much more engaged, much more human approach than just sending something into a piece of software. And more often than not, let the software just spit out resumes that have certain buzzwords in them.
So that's great. That's great advice, Steve. You're talking about building relationship with the recruiter and with the company. Rena, let me ask you a question. So what job do you want? And then let's see if these guys could help you get there.
I would love to be a project manager. I would love to help a company, work on a social media campaign for any type of company, any type of brand. I've been approached, actually, people in the community have asked me, hey, can you start me a Twitter account? Hey, can you start me a LinkedIn account? Hey, I noticed you have 3,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know how to work Twitter. So, but I like to collaborate with people. I like to talk to people. I'm a people person. So I feel like that can be applied to lots of different places.
Well, it sounds like you want to be a project manager in the technology social media space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever thought of just starting your own business?
People have mentioned that to me. I just feel like, I don't.
The reason why I ask is
I don't know how to plan my day. I would like to join a team of people that kind of have something already going. It's kind of like when I worked in TV. I never wanted to be the executive producer, but I like to be a producer because I can make other people's stories come to life. You know, it was like if they had a formula, I could deliver the formula.
Okay, so my recommendation would be looking at smaller companies.
Okay.
Right now, social media is really weird because it's a whole brand new world out there. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows to target how to actually target it. I have some friends of mine they're social media managers globally for some very large companies. And, you know, they get approached all the time by companies to come and do social media for their company. And that's what everybody wants. They want somebody who has experience in it. But there's a handful of people that have that. So what I think you should do is take what these people are asking you to do and add that to your resume. Say, hey, listen, I'm helping this company, or I'm helping these people with, setting up a Twitter account, learning how to use Hootsuite, learning how to use all these other social media tools. That's would be my recommendation to start out with.
Okay.
Steve, do you have any tips?
Let me add another one to this one. There are two things. You can do this digitally. You can do this analog, like just meet, shake hands, kiss babies, or you can do a combination of the two. One of the things that I recommend to all job seekers is create an account on meetup.com. And I just did a search right now for all the social media related meetups in the Chicago area. And there are many. There's one meetup called Chicago Women Tech. There's online marketing, small business technology, social media get-togethers, e-commerce. These are, meetups are places for job seekers to actually be able to shake people's hands.
That's a great tip,
not,
Steve. That's an awesome tip. I think that I was just going to add one more.
I've been going to one for like a year. Groupon does Geek Fest once a week, and that's actually like kind of got me interested in the startup community. And I've been like dabbling in the startup world, even though I'm not getting paid. But I've had some really exciting.
We're running out of time. We're actually kind of going over a little bit, but I just wanted to give you my thoughts. And I think that what I'm hearing is that it may be helpful for you to spend some time to get super clear on exactly what you want to do. And actually, if you'd like, we can talk about that after the show. But I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Derek Zeller for being here, and Steve Levy, and Rena Watts. Steve, how can folks reach you if they want to?
Well, there are several ways. The easiest is you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the person with the knit hat standing in front of a bank of telephones.
Okay.
I have a very whimsical LinkedIn profile. You can follow me on Twitter, Levy Recruits, or you can read my blogs. Blog is called recruitinginferno.com.
And Derek, how can folks find you?
Type in my name in Google search, and it'll pretty much take you to everything that I do socially.
And that's Derek Zeller, Zeller.
DerekZeller. And you'll find my Twitter account, my LinkedIn, Facebook, everything's in there. So.
And Rena, if someone is listening in the Chicagoland area and wants to hire you, how would they find you?
I'm also on LinkedIn, Rena Friedman Watt, and I'm on Twitter, Rena.
Awesome. So again, you've been listening to You're Hired. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. This is 96.7 FM, WERA in Arlington. Thanks for joining the show. We'll see you next week.